Nick, so excited to have you on the podcast, and really looking forward to our conversation today. It's pretty funny. Like, we've known each other a long time through our faith community, and we kind of crossed paths and realized, like, wait a second, we're in the same industry. So it's a pretty cool moment and experience for me, at least, to know that I have another friend who's going through the same challenges and rigmaroles that I am. So super happy to have you aboard and joining the show.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, dude. A lot of coffee meetups, a lot of just conversations about being married and finance and all that fun stuff. So yeah, I'm happy to talk to you, man, anytime.
Yeah, so. Excellent. So your role is slightly different, from an advisor's role. And I feel like not as many people truly understand, the aspects of compliance when it comes to 401k plans. And candidly, I feel like you guys don't get nearly enough credit. I think you guys are kind of the unsung hero when it comes to retirement plans. Mm-hmm. You guys are doing a lot of the behind the scenes work, keeping plans compliant and keeping regulators happy when it comes to the operations of these plans. So perhaps you could share a little bit more about what you do specifically, so it kind of help our audience understand the significance and the importance of your role.
Yeah. So what I do currently, I am the director of implementation at a provider called 401go, which is fully bundled 401k provider. So, you mentioned the administration. So we do the testing as well as the record keeping, which we can get into, defining the record keeping side, but also just it's very tech forward. So tracking eligibility, all that fun stuff. But so my role specifically is in the implementation of those. So there's just a lot of little details that come with onboarding, not only a new plan, but specifically a conversion plan. When you're transferring assets from one provider to another, a lot of things to keep track of, a lot of historical data that you have to keep track of. So so my goal is just to oversee those things. I have a staff. I'm actually building out the department. And that's kind of been my bread and butter since I stepped in the industry. I was a conversion consultant when I first stepped in the industry, and interacting with advisors on a daily basis, trying to convert plans over millions of dollars of assets. So yeah, there's a lot of little details, and unsung hero. I do appreciate that. Also, just working with advisors is a joy of mine. So they're just basically the advocate for our mutual client, and yeah, it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I'm hoping we can dig into a little bit more details about specifically what a third-party administrator is, and bundled versus unbundled, and the record keeper. But before we do that, I feel like most people don't grow up dreaming to go into the retirement plan business, right? It's just kind of like one of those things where it's like you find yourself, and it's just like, it's an amazing and incredible industry, because you can help so many people in a significantly meaningful way. Like, not only small business owners, helping them save for themselves and their retirement, but also supporting them and their staff, and being able to be in a position where you can help people to be able to retire with dignity. Like, I think we share that common thread and that common value. Like, we love serving people, making sure that they can be successful. So how did you find yourself here?
and you're right. You don't step out one day as a kid and you're like, man, I really want to get into 401ks. Like, it's a dream of mine. So, what's really funny is when I got out of high school, I wanted nothing to do with education and continue. Like, I didn't want to go to college. I didn't want to go to trade school. So I actually went in the military, served about 3 years in the Navy, got out with an honorable discharge. And the reason why I stepped in, because I was like, well, if I decide I'm going to go to school, I get free education out of it, which is awesome. So got out of the military, and then started working part-time for a grocery store that I work for. And then I also started going to community college, taking advantage of my education. So I eventually started going to school at University of Dallas, got a scholarship there. Then moved home and finished up my degree at Sac State. But I was working I had a lot of administration background in the Navy. I was an aircraft director and firefighter, but I also did a lot of administration there. So I got a job actually as a leasing administrator for a really high value apartment complex, like really expensive one, like really ritzy. So I did that for a couple of years, and I had a friend of mine that she was like, we're looking for what's called conversion consultants. And she kind of told me about that. I'm like, what are you converting? Like, what does that mean? And is 401k conversion. So I ended up getting the job. And I remember walking out of the first team meeting and being like, just full on headache. Cause I'm like, what are participants? What are like eligibility? I just remember thinking all those things. So, the company I work for really trained me well. I had a team lead and stuff. And then I eventually started realizing the value of the 401k and the benefit for a business. And so it really helped me speak to advisors, speak to plans on a high level. My job specifically was project managing 401k plan. So I'd sit in hour-long meetings with, talking about plan provision. So like the plan design call was one of the things. And you just sit and you listen to how to draft a plan document. And if you have an advisor that's really good on those calls, they really are like, I really advocate for a safe harbor match, and you kind of listen to the reasons why it's a great fit. Usually it is. But then, you listen to all sorts of different aspects. So I've been in the industry now for about 9 years. And I've fallen in love with it. So I left, that was a more traditional provider. I left and I went to a tech company, and then now I'm at another tech company, which is great. So no, amazing. Yeah. Thanks for taking us through that journey. And perhaps we can dig into like some of the nuance between like bundled versus unbundled. And I beyond that, I definitely want to hear from your perspective what you wish more business owners knew about 401k plans. Oh, that's a tough question because there's a lot. I feel like I wish they knew. I think that it's a mindset thing for an owner when they start thinking about a benefit like that for their staff. If you're looking to max out, your own contributions as an owner, then you can set up the plan to do that. But that also means you have to kind of benefit everybody else. And you can set up the plan that way. So it seems scary at first when you're kind of talking about compliance and all that stuff, but it could really be beneficial and help with retention of your staff. And I think if you're thinking in terms of retention, man, 401k is a great tool for that. So that's the biggest thing. I mean, that's more of like a sales pitch for 401k. On the other side, I think I just wish a lot of businesses knew how great safe harbor match is and how much that can really just set aside the pains of the compliance side and all that. So
no, I'd love to dig into the first thing that you said there. Personally, I've helped implement new retirement plan programs from the ground up where business owners didn't really have anything previously. And over time, I think there is this if the programs won't run well, if participants have access to the education, if they're deferring, if they're participating, there starts to become this shift that I see where people know like, hey, I'm saving in my 401k plan. I can put in my time here, and I know that my family is going to be financially well, that I'm going to be able to retire. And like, there's a certain sense of peace that employees have when, you are able to provide that for them and have that benefit. And if you look at, today, like the labor market has been incredibly competitive, right? And there's just this war for talent, and so if you have an employee who's, maybe receiving an offer where the salary is, $5,000 more, are they going to, be tempted, to take a look, I think generally speaking, they're going to be less tempted if they know that they're financially, on track, for themselves, for their family, and they're not feeling that, same intense, financial burden. So, as an advisor, like I've been able to, get a front row seat to that and like see that evolution over time. And like, not only for, the participants, but for the business owner as well. I mean, when you look at the number of business owners who are going to be retiring over the next 10 years, it's like a third of all small businesses. Like that number is like massive. And so if you're relying on the vast majority of your retirement to be funded by the sale of your business, like that can be a bit precarious.
Yeah.
If you're not able to get, the valuation you need, or, find the right buyer, like whatever that may be, like that could put people in a really tough spot. So I think there's just, so many benefits to it, from, both of those standpoints. Now you mentioned, safe harbor, like, tell me a little bit more about that. Just help our audience basically, understand the mechanics of, what that is and why it can be important for small businesses.
Yeah. Safe harbor match, or safe harbor is generally when it's, I mean, you can look at safe harbor in a lot of different aspects of a plan document. And when I speak about a plan document, this is your governing IRS plan document that basically outlines what your waiting period is for your employees. If you're doing a match, if you're doing an additional non-elective contribution at the end of the year, all that's going to be outlined. When we talk about safe harbor in a general aspect, we're talking about safe harbor match. So the benefit of a safe harbor is it kind of takes you out of the running for, you automatically pass non-discrimination testing. So there's what's called ADP and ACP testing. I'm not going to get into the whole details of that, but ADP is actual deferral contribution, and then ACP is your contribution percentage. So it's match and your deferrals. They're both weighted out and they're tested between highly compensated employees and non-highly compensated employees. So all that being said, to paint that picture, is when you do a safe harbor match, you're giving those employees a benefit. And so that in the IRS's eyes, when you're doing that match, then you don't need to go through that rigorous testing. And then as an owner, you can then think about maxing out. So that's why that's the benefit. That percentage of match, it can vary. The max for a safe harbor match is up to 6%, and it could be as low as 3.5%. So we always recommend what's called QACA safe harbor. And so that that match gives you the ability to do a auto enroll is already embedded, and auto escalation is embedded, but it is the cheapest percentage match that you can do. So it's 100% on the first percent, and then 50% on the next 5. So an employee has to just put in a full 6%, and then the max you're matching is 3.5%, which is great. So that's what I always recommend if someone's like thinking about the cost and everything. That is the very cheapest option, and it gives you the benefit as an owner to be able to max out and not have to worry about all the end of year testing and compliance and all that stuff.
No. So one of my questions I had queued up for you is like, hey, what is like the plan design that you wish more people knew about? And like, I am also a huge fan of the QACA.
I didn't even mention that.
You beat me to it. Like, huge fan of the QACA. Like, I think it's, it can be like a really great tool. And like, just because like, in a year, I mean, business revenues might be a little bit lower, but like, even with that, you can still do profit sharing with that plan design, right?
Yep. Yeah, exactly. Yes. So you can do profit sharing with that. There's advisors that will recommend what's called a non-elective contribution. But in general, yes, you can do a profit sharing and try to get to your max. Now, like age is weighted out. So if the age of an owner, if they're older than their staff, that really benefits them to be able to max out. But yeah, it's really nice for doing a profit sharing contribution at the end of the year, to be able to max out those benefits.
Yeah. Another thing I see a lot of business owners like don't.
Oh, by the way, QACA stands for Qualified Automatic Contribution Arrangement. So it's not some weird word. I just want that to be clear. It's an acronym. I have a coworker that tries to say that tries to drop a joke every time, and he says "quack like a duck," and it kills me inside every time I hear it. It's not an IRS dad joke. It's an actual acronym.
Yeah.
So
yeah, no, absolutely. Thanks for that clarification. Another thing that I think is, and you see this, front and center being compliance and dealing with plan documents and plan design is, I feel like there's a lot of 401k plans out there that have just kind of been, assembled and put together. And then, 5-6 years, the organization has changed substantially. Maybe you have more employees now. Maybe the organization is more profitable. Maybe as the business owner is getting closer to retirement and wanting to put away more. So, a common thing that I see is like there's tons of 401k plans out there where it's just basically being operated like a simple IRA with a higher contribution limit. Yeah. And so when you're looking at, plans, like how do you take a business owner through that, plan design, process? Like what are some of those questions that you're asking them?
Well, what are your goals? That's a big one. What is your staff's income? And not, you don't have to give me everybody. But like generally, do you have a lot of highly compensated employees that are deemed highly compensated? So when I say highly compensated, anybody that makes, for 2025, anybody that makes over $160,000 a year, or 5% owner or more. So those are the two variables to be highly compensated. If you have a lot of highly compensated employees that you're paying, and then you have a couple that are non-highly, you want to do a safe harbor match. Because if any of those highly compensated employees are maxing out or trying to put a ton of money, it kind of throws the entire plan off. So that's why I start with that question, because I'm like, okay, if nobody's highly, right, and the owner's not contributing and they are under a budget, then I'd be like, okay, well, safe harbor, doesn't have to be a requirement for you. You can just run a plan where you're just doing deferrals. So laying out that groundwork, seeing what they're at risk of in the testing each year, really gives you the groundwork for you to be able to kind of go through what your goals are. And then the next thing I'll ask is waiting period. It's the fun thing, how long do you want employees to wait before they enter into the plan? Are you currently running health benefits? If you're having health benefits and you have like a 3-month waiting period, you can mirror that waiting period with your health benefits. It could be completely separate, but just for continuity purposes, that's another thing. So,
yeah, no, absolutely. What are some of the common administrative mistakes that you come across when you're looking at the compliance of a plan? So let's say, business, they get that plan design right, they're nailing the safe harbor, they're, making those contributions, but what are some of the other common things that you see?
Administrative, just kind of things that are missed in a plan design or
right. Yeah, well, no, not necessarily on the plan design side. I'm talking about like the actual operations of a plan.
Oh, yeah. You might be queuing me up for the tech world, but so a lot of traditional providers, if you don't have an integration with your payroll, you're uploading what's called a payroll journal each pay period. Like you might have someone, and I'm speaking as a business owner, like if I'm a business owner, I might have someone on my staff, like an HR person, upload like an Excel spreadsheet to the provider's website each pay period to process those contributions each pay period. So what's really nice is, and those can be missed. So you have, after the check date, you have up to 7 business days to process that. That's to stay in compliance. Otherwise, then, you'll run into needing to do corrections and all that stuff with, missed missed increases of your investments, all sorts of stuff like that. So that's why it's very important to be timely with those. So that's one of the biggest administrative missteps. So the nice thing with a lot of these tech 401k companies is payroll integration. That's like it's a really nice thing, because if you integrate with your payroll, you don't have to worry about that 7 business day window. It's automatically going in each pay period. So corrections like that is a huge thing. Missed deferral uploads, like that's probably one of the number one things.
Yeah, no, totally. I mean, like oftentimes, like the processing of payroll, that may fall on an HR person's shoulders, and HR, we know, is like incredibly busy. They're handling all sorts of responsibilities, and so like that, if you can eliminate the potential for human error, I think that is huge. Just setting yourself up for success, not only reducing, the additional task that this HR or payroll person is going to need to take, but knowing that that information is flowing between the new platform and your payroll system, and it's all, syncing and 100% accurate.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
I agree.
Yeah.
And really then at that point, all you have to worry about is making sure you run payroll correctly. So you jump into your payroll and make sure everybody's, information is correct in there. And then you just don't have to worry about it, especially if you have what's called a 360 integration, where, the payroll company is pulling from the 401k company, and then that's feeding the census information to the 401k company. And then, so anytime if you let go of an employee or add an employee, that automatically syncs up the 401k. And then it's just running in circles, and you just set it and forget it. And that human error is just completely taken out. So
yeah, no, absolutely. I think that's, important on 2 fronts, not just the deferral changes, but with Secure Act 2.0, there's new requirements about including automatic enrollment in the document, right? And so if you have that payroll system syncing and the 401k system syncing, it can also help handle that function, make sure people are enrolled in a timely manner.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep. And auto enrolls like it's a great feature. I understand why the IRS is pushing for that. That, I guess that's another thing that I wish business owners understood, that auto enroll is not really a scary thing. Especially if you're using a tech provider that's pushing notification to employees, like a 401go, for instance, or like a human interest. They'll push notifications constantly to somebody that's going to auto enroll, and completely give them more of an opportunity to be able to opt out than it would be with a traditional provider where you're using paperwork. And there's just a lot of human error that can be there for the taking. So so that's why tech companies could be a really good option especially for small businesses that just are like, I don't want to get totally educated. I don't need to know everything about 401ks. Like, just tell me what to do, and please do everything for me. And that's kind of a lot of the mentality right now, which is totally understandable. So
yeah. And one other thing I'll add with automatic enrollment is that there's a feature that you can include in your plan document where if someone was mistakenly auto enrolled, they can request their funds pulled out. Can you take the audience through what that's called?
Yeah. So yeah, if you have auto enroll, and most plans will come with this this provision, but so if someone is mistakenly auto enrolled in the plan, they have up to 90 days to take out a distribution. So that just allows them to be able to be like, hey, I didn't want to be auto enrolled at 3%. And I've been auto enrolled I've been contributing for 2 pay periods. And it's under that 90-day period, you can just take out a distribution and opt out. Yeah. And you don't have to contribute anymore. So
cool.
And your provider should help with that. They should completely manage that between the provider and the participant. So hopefully doesn't need to be really any intervention or administration from the company owner, other than just pointing their employee in the right direction. So
no, certainly. Now there's been some recent changes and a push within the regulatory world, if you will, about allowing things like private equity and 401ks. And like, it's been kind of interesting for me to see. I have my own thoughts on it and definitely want to get your take and your perspective.
Yeah. So private equity, I probably have to think about a little bit, but I will say, there's always been the ability, and this is where you can really complicate your 401k plan, but there's always been the ability to recognize assets in a plan that can really complicate what is looked at under a 401k plan.
Yep.
So I'll use real estate as an example. Like, I worked for a tech company before, and we received a plan, and then we just realized, oh my gosh, there's real estate written in the plan document. And so we had to make a decision because we're not set up to recognize real estate, and there has to be a valuation each period, and those are recognized as assets. So when you kind of, and then also same thing with like brokerage accounts, for instance, like if you're investing in like Apple and you have these brokerage accounts that have all these really unique funds, maybe highly volatile funds, it can also complicate a plan. Like if I will say, if you're putting in money into risky investments and all that stuff, you really don't want to put your money into, you don't want to put your retirement into that. Like, that could be a separate investment for you. So, yeah, I mean, we've always had that in the industry where plans will recognize some really interesting types of assets, and sometimes it pays off, sometimes it doesn't. I don't, that's kind of where I stand with that.
Yeah. No, certainly. I mean, I'm super curious to see how this evolves over the next, 6, 12, 18 months. And just how the different record keepers are going to come to market with some of these different, options and considerations. Yeah. But I mean, shoot, like, bottom line, like, do we need to include those things for people to be successful in saving for retirement? Like, bottom line, like, the short answer that we can confidently say is no. Yeah. Can it be advantageous for a very specific, sophisticated investor who understands illiquidity, who understands, the underlying investments? Yeah, sure. Like, it could be advantageous. Like, is it going to be the right fit for the vast majority of people? Right now, my guys tell me probably not. So yeah, we'll see how this pans out. And how, again, all these different providers are going to come to market. So
as an advisor, would you say, like, if you have things like that, like private equity or even like real estate, how would you advise a client on that?
Yeah, super great question. And, I think bottom line, big picture, it comes to the overall plan that the individual has in order to achieve the retirement income goal that they're looking to accomplish, right? Mm-hmm. And so just going back to the basics, going back to the fundamentals, and
real quick, I just want to, because I just want to elaborate your point that you're about to make. When I talk about recognizing, like, real estate or what have you, that means you're under 401k or IRS rules for distribution. So, you have to wait until age 59 and a half to be able to take your money out penalty free. So if you're under that age and then you've just recognized assets, like, you have distribution rules that you have to adhere to. Like, to me, I'm like, why would you put yourself through that rather than just like invest on the outside of a 401k plan? So anyway, I wanted to kind of, that's why I have hesitancy towards recognizing those unique types of assets.
Totally. Yeah, no, absolutely. And so, getting back to, the bigger pictures, like, you have to look at, okay, what is the end goal? What is the retirement income level we're looking to replace here? And so looking at not only the assets that you have in your 401k accounts, but assets outside of that. If you have a Roth IRA or a traditional brokerage account, how can we make sure that we have the correct asset allocation? And not only just asset allocation, meaning, the amount that you have in stocks, bonds, and alternatives, but also asset location. Like, where's the best place to hold these potential assets? Now, when you look at, things like private equity, oftentimes you're required to be what's called an accredited investor. So you have to have a certain income, certain net worth in order to be able to utilize that investment. And with these funds, they can be very complex. There can be leverage associated with them. There's typically an illiquidity period with a lot of these funds, meaning that investors are going to be in these funds for not just 1 to 2 years, but 5+ years. And so I think my main concern is like, okay, like depending on the types of investment options are going out that are being provided, like does your average investor who might want to put think they want to put some funds in that, do they understand all of these risks? Do they understand the way these funds work? Do they understand the timeline? What happens if you have a participant who puts 100% of their assets in it, and then they change jobs, or the market goes down substantially, or that investment goes down substantially, and that's the vast majority of the retirement assets, right? So I would say to individuals who are in charge of running and operating a 401k plan, like, hey, you want to definitely proceed with caution, because as someone who is operating a plan, you have what's called a fiduciary obligation to your participants, right? And that essentially what that means is making sure that you're reviewing the investment lineup and doing your appropriate due diligence to say, yes, these are suitable investments for you to consider and utilize in planning for your retirement.
Wow. That's why you're the expert. Oh, great answer. I'd lean into that. And also the thought that was coming up in my mind was, I mean, have you heard of Rob's, like a Rob's 401k?
Yes, I have. Yeah.
How do you feel about that? As an administrator, I feel terrible sometimes for these business owners that utilize it, and then they have such a hard time getting out of it because they've added employees, so it just makes it really difficult.
So a Rob's rollover is basically where you're taking your assets and transferring it and using those assets to for the startup and establishment and operations of your new
business,
right? And
the assets are recognized as employer stock rather than regular like money that's like invested in like mutual funds. It's recognized as employer stock.
Yep. And so I think if you're going to make that move, again, you have to be someone who has a really high risk tolerance, because I mean, you're taking assets that you set aside for yourself and for your retirement. And if you look at, the percentages of new businesses that, aren't around in 5 years, like, it's not an insubstantial number. So, first and foremost, I would say, like, hey, like if that's what you have to do, and like you understand that, hey, if this business does go under, I've got nothing, like, then proceed with caution. But it's not something that I'd feel super comfortable ever recommending to any client.
I've just they're rare. I've run into it, but I didn't know if you've ever had to kind of deal with that conversation before. So
no, it is super interesting. There's like tons of options out there. And like when it comes to funding your business, like if you can't get an SBA loan, or if you can't obtain traditional financing or get investor financing, like my question becomes why, right? So with the one big beautiful bill that passed, with there are specific provisions within it that reduces the taxability and the tax impact of an exit. You have to be a C corporation. You have to check all these boxes, right? So if you're looking to be super tax efficient, I think there are ways to achieve that outside of a Rob's rollover. But some people hear about it and like, hey, that's what they're gonna do, and all the power to them.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So what do you see like being, kind of the next evolution of the retirement plan world?
I think these startup tech companies that are starting to actually like make a big splash and converting plans from these other really big providers. I think that's going to force these traditional providers to lean into tech solutions, whether that means, and I'm speaking from an investor point of view, because like my last tech company that I work for, I'm an actual investor in it. I'm very interested in this industry right now because these great startup companies they're jumping in and they're better than the last one. And it's kind of making me excited. And so when you look at these traditional providers that are around, that have been around forever, what's their move? Because you have these these tech companies that are really like, they're tracking eligibility, they're doing all the reach outs, and they're making people's lives a lot easier, these business owners' lives a lot easier. So with the traditional providers, I wonder if they're going to try and buy these businesses out, or if they're going to start really leaning into improving their tech. Because I've worked for a traditional provider where I just feel like, oh man, like this is just archaic a little bit, because you built on something old and you're trying to figure it, you're putting a plane together as it's flying, basically. So that's one thing I'm very interested in the industry is just the whole bigger business side. Like, what's the other one going to do? Like what's the other, and then are they going to put out a hit piece on the other one, like as far as, so, payroll partnerships are a big deal now in the tech industry, so it's because there's a lot of integration with payroll partnerships. There's a lot of competition with being the favorite. So yeah, I mean, at 401go, like, alongside 401ks, they're also leaning into a lot more investment options, like, and then HSA accounts, IRAs, all sorts of things that can be really tech forward. So, and can really help big businesses. So I'm really interested in the tech world because it's really interesting time.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Do you think there's going to be more state mandates across the United States? Kind of like, here in California, we have CalSavers, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then Nevada recently launched theirs. Like, do you think like we're going to see a lot more of that over time?
Yeah, I mean, I think each state's, I'd have to pull up the list, but not every state's adopted CalSavers, so or a state saver plan. But I really think every state's going to do it, and then it's really going to push businesses into considering whether they want to be on a government plan, that's Roth IRA, or do they want to grab a 401k. And I say Roth IRA because pretty much every state plan is a Roth IRA. And you do have to make a decision as a business owner if you're going to lean into that, because honestly, Roth IRAs, they don't roll over into a 401k. So you need to make a decision early if you're going to start falling into that state mandate. Do I want to adhere to the state plan, or do I want to make a good decision for my staff and a future a decision that's going to affect the company in the future?
No, that's an amazing point that you made, like in terms of Roth IRA and eligibility to roll into 401k plan. I mean, I'm sure you've come across quite a few plans where that adopted into CalSavers and they're like, wait a second, we're just going to roll out our own retirement plan solution, right? Now, one other point, and I'm sure you talk to business owners every day about this, is that with Secure Act 2.0, there's a lot more tax credits and a lot more provisions to try to help reduce the financial burden of offering a 401k plan. Can you touch on that briefly?
Yeah, so the IRS is offering, I'm trying to pull up the actual tax credits right now, because you're bringing up a good term. I've got it right here in front of me. So the IRS is really trying to encourage 401k plans, and I think that's a beautiful thing. Now I say 401k plans, but qualified plans. So we're talking in general, but 401ks is the most popular out of a qualified plan. So there's 3 different types of credits that the IRS offers. So it's 100% for administration credits. So what you pay your provider, it's 100% of administration costs up to $5,000 per year for the first 3 years. So as a small business, that is really attractive. If I'm a business owner, that's a really attractive thing. Then there's contribution credits. So me mentioning safe harbor earlier, that's a big deal. So contribution credits is 100% of contributions made to employees up to $1,000 per employee on a sliding scale for 5 years. And then you have your auto enroll credit. So that's just an additional $500 for the first 3 years. And every plan that you start up, like now at this point, they're going to have auto enroll required. So that's an automatic $500. So all that to say, like the plan will almost pay for itself for the first 3 years. And that's a really great thing.
Absolutely. And that's not including the tax savings that business owners may experience from making deferrals into,
yes,
the
100%,
pre-tax, right?
Pre-tax.
So,
Yep.
Yeah, pre-tax. So, I mean, it is pretty interesting. I've sat down with so many business owners and come to the table with illustrations because, oftentimes as a business owner, you need to know, like, hey, what is my bottom line? What is this going to cost me? Like, how am I going to pay for this? And it's like, after looking at, the tax credits and, the tax savings that they personally would experience and like the overall cost of operating the plan, like it can be an amazing deal. Yes. And it's like really opened the eyes to a lot of business owners I've met with who came into that with a preconception, like, oh my goodness, this is going to be like another health insurance bill for me. And that's just not always the case. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And when they're looking at all these other providers, I was just thinking, like, I mean, it's like The Bachelor, they're like, which numbers looks the best as far as, the profit sharing allocation, all that stuff as well.
Yeah.
So
yeah, absolutely. I think, you brought up profit sharing. Like another thing that I intended to make earlier, but didn't, is, with profit sharing, unlike with a safe harbor, you can add what's called a vesting schedule, right?
Yes.
And so that's where you require employees to be with you for a certain period of time. Before that becomes theirs.
Yeah, vesting's a hot button topic because owners, when we talk about retention, another encouraging thing is, like, if you're going to do a match or you're going to do some sort of employer contribution into the plan, does that automatically, like, can my employees claim that money if they leave? And for that QACA safe harbor that I mentioned, actually, you can set a 2-year vesting period with that. And that's actually the only safe harbor option that allows it. The other ones are 100%. So that means they have to be with you for a full 2 years of having this plan. They have to be with you for a full 2 years in order to be able to take home that money if they leave you. And then same thing with profit sharing. So profit sharing is, I would think about match as a bucket of employer contributions, and then you look at profit sharing, that's another bucket. And in that safe harbor bucket or that match bucket, you have one vesting schedule. And then for profit sharing, you can set a whole different vesting schedule. You can set it up to 6 years. You can do 4 years where it's each year it increases 25%, 25%, 25%, something like that. So having a vesting schedule for profit sharing and match is just, it's a great thing because that also increases retention and the desire to stick around and contribute to your business. So yeah, no, absolutely. Well, I really enjoyed our conversation today. Anything else that is on your mind before you'd love to share with our audience before we wrap up? If you're a business owner and you're looking into getting a 401k, call up Dominic. But I mean, honestly, seriously, like it's those tax credits, really look into them because it can really benefit you, and you can give a good benefit to your employees. And after almost a decade in this industry, I really do believe in 401ks. I think it can really change people's lives. And great benefit to look into.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thanks so much, Nick. Really loved having you on. And I'm sure at some point we'll have you back on.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Thanks, Dom.
All right. Thanks.